Hello everyone, it's me, Sam, the not Virginian Railway Class AG. In this video, I'm gonna be discussing random what-if scenarios that I thought about potentially happening in like an alternate timeline or universe or dimension in Thomas. For example, think, what if James stayed black? Would he still be vain? Would he never choose to be painted a different color? Something like that. Feel free to tell me your own what-ifs in the comments below if you have any. Number 1. What if Percy hated dogs? Now, Percy hasn't been seen interacting with any dogs in either the original series or Origins Go. However, plenty of episodes have showcased his love for animals, so there's no doubt in me that he would absolutely be a dog lover. If he had any favorite animals, dogs would be in the top 3. But what if Percy didn't like dogs? With Percy being a mail engine, he's basically the equivalent to a mailman or a postman. Same thing. Mailmen are notorious for being the sworn enemies of dogs. Since Percy doesn't deliver the mail right up to the mailbox or porch of someone's house, he logically wouldn't endure any of the experience that a regular mailman would have with dogs. But like, what if he was good friends with all the postal workers he works with, and they've all had at least one negative encounter with dogs, and Percy just instantly grows a hatred towards them in honor of his co-workers? He would never have any personal experience himself with dogs to make him hate them, but he would, all for the sake of what he's heard from other postal workers. Low-key, I would like to make this canon to a series I make one day. Number 2. What if Thomas crashed into his driver's house? Here's one I think you might like. What if instead of it being a station master's house that Thomas crashed into when Thomas comes to breakfast, it was instead his driver's house? The irony that it would be if Bob joked to Thomas the day before about no longer needing him, and then the following morning his words come back to bite him up the ass, and he's just like, why the f did I tell you that? That would be so funny if that happened, and honestly, I think it could have happened if the story was written by someone else other than Wilbert. Number 3. What if Sir Topham Hat had a second twin? This is one that I've seen people joke about before. With there being a Topham and a Loam, some people have talked about there potentially being a Midhim, and I've tried to think about a background and a look for Midhim if he existed. Now, Midhim would be the middle child, obviously, and out of the triplets, he would be the most good-looking. He'd still have the same body and height as Topham and Loam, however, he would have a full-on goatee and luscious long blonde hair. So, think Gru's brother from Despicable Me 3, but with a beard. And he would earn the nickname Handsome Hat. Now, for Midhim, I feel like with him being the middle child, he could work as being the only one out of his siblings to not get knighted, but with Loam somehow getting a knightlyhood of his own, I feel like he could have one too for a reason that's not disclosed. Maybe he and Loam pulled a Bill and Ben on the Queen or something. And I guess like Loam too, Midhim is also a bit crazy, but not as crazy as Loam. And that's all I have for my headcanon of this character. On to the next one. Numero 4. What if Thomas purposely pushed Stanley into the tower? This is gonna be a really bizarre one, and this scenario is something that I can only see happening if the Great Discovery was the introduction to all of the characters in the series, or if someone did an edgy comedic parody of the movie. I've seen a few, very few mind you, people compare Thomas and Stanley's dynamic in The Great Discovery to Woody and Buzz in the first Toy Story, and that had me thinking of an alternate version of the movie where, like Woody in the original version of Toy Story, Thomas was a lot meaner and antagonistic. In the early version of Toy Story, Woody purposely throws Buzz out the window as opposed to the final version where it was just an accident. And I thought, what if the same thing applied for Thomas during the scene where Stanley struggles to pull the train up the hill? Let's say Thomas volunteers to help Stanley while he's struggling, and once he comes behind him, he pushes Stanley and the train down the hill and into the tower, and the engines, even Percy, berate him for it. Obviously, this would never happen. Not even Series 1 Thomas was that mean. This is more in line with something that Diesel could do. But I think it's amusing to think about, and someday I would like to make a storyboard of this alternative take similar to the Black Friday Toy Story reel. Let me know what you think. Mambo No 5. What if Arry and Bert really liked weddings? Shout out to anyone who gets this deep cut reference. If you don't, then it's not too important as the source technically doesn't exist anymore. This is one I made a post about on my community not long ago, and while it's not a thought I came up with on my own, it's still one that I think could happen. When you look at Arry and Bert, you wouldn't think that they'd be the ones to like something like weddings, and I'm referring to both Series 5 and post-Series 5 Arry and Bert, where they're less grim. But not only do they like weddings, they love weddings. If they were people, they'd be the ones who would volunteer to bake the cake, and it turns out really well made. Bert would also be the one to cry once the bride shows up. Number 6. What if Sir Thomas' assistants were evil?
No one really discusses Topham Hat's assistants, especially once they became irrelevant during the Big World Big Adventures era, but watching one of Diesel D199's shorts had me thinking about them. What if Topham's assistants secretly knew more than they were letting on? Okay, well, they never talk, but they certainly would know a lot about the railway and the engines and people from standing over Topham's shoulder all day long. You ever wonder what they're up to on their off time? What if they were secretly plotting something against Topham? It could be anything, from getting him fired, from potentially putting him to sleep, or even taking over his railway. Anything to get the boss they hate out of their lives. When it comes to people using human antagonists in Thomas fan projects, they'll either go for P.T. Boomer or an original villain. I'd like to see someone switch it up and make a random pre-established character that we don't know much about a villain, i.e. Sir Topham Hat's assistants. No one would ever suspect the silent ones of being up to something. Number 7. What if the engines did a fist bump with their buffers? This is just a silly bonus one that I thought for fun. In First Day on Sodor, Alfie and Oliver do a fist bump with their buckets, and that was pretty cool. And I thought, hey, what if the engines did that too, but with their buffers? Now, obviously, the engines would have to be pointed face to face in order for this to occur, as well as have the same mindset, otherwise it'll just come across as awkward. I don't have much else to say about this one. Like I said, this was added for fun, nothing more. Anyway, that's it for random what ifs I have. Like I said at the start, if you have any that you would like to share, leave them down in the comments. And I'll see you next time.